What if I told you the fruit in your bowl is quietly undoing your bone health after 60? A lot of seniors load up on fruits thinking they're doing the right thing, but some contain natural compounds that block calcium absorption that leaves bones weaker over time. And this isn't new science. Old school doctors were warning patients about oxalate-rich foods decades before bone density scans even existed. Today we're looking at 4 fruits that seem innocent but actually leach calcium from your bones, ranked from sneaky to severe, each with the forgotten clinical wisdom that explains why. By the end, you'll know exactly which swaps protect your bones without giving up fruit, and you'll understand the repair mechanisms most doctors stopped talking about in the 1980s. Food number 1, tomato seeds. Tomatoes are a fruit, and their seeds are packed with oxalates and phytates. These anti-nutrients bind to calcium in your gut, forming insoluble complexes that your body can't absorb, so the calcium just passes right through you. Studies show that oxalate-rich foods can reduce calcium absorption by up to 20% in a single meal. That's a lot of lost bone support from something as common as a tomato. Here's where the old clinical wisdom comes in. Physicians in the 1950s and 60s routinely told osteoporosis patients to de-seed their tomatoes. They didn't have DEXA scans, but they had decades of pattern recognition across thousands of patients. They saw that seedless diets slowed bone loss, so they kept recommending it. Functional medicine practitioners today echo that advice, telling anyone with bone density concerns to remove the seeds. They also emphasize that the gut's calcium oxalate binding happens within 2 hours of eating, so timing matters more than total intake. If you eat a high oxalate food, wait a couple hours before eating your calcium-rich meal. But the real damage goes deeper. When oxalates bind calcium in your gut, your blood calcium levels can dip. Your parathyroid gland senses that dip and triggers bone resorption to release calcium from your skeleton. So you're losing bone from 2 directions at once: blocked absorption and increased breakdown. That's a silent double hit. The swap is simple. Enjoy seedless tomatoes or cook them to reduce the oxalate impact, and pair your calcium source like sardines or yogurt at a different time. And that's a sneaky one because tomatoes are everywhere, but the next fruit is even more deceptive. It's marketed as a health food. Food number 2, dried fruits with added sugar. Dried cranberries, sweetened dates, and other packaged dried fruits are sugar bombs that weaken bones. When you eat a lot of added sugar, your insulin spikes and your body creates an acidic environment. To buffer that acid, your body pulls calcium from your bones and then you pee it out. Research links high added sugar diets to lower bone mineral density and increased fracture risk in older adults, so that healthy trail mix might be doing more harm than good. Functional medicine adds another layer. Excess sugar feeds inflammation, which accelerates osteoclast activity. That's the bone breakdown process. And here's a detail most people miss. Sugar depletes magnesium. Without enough magnesium, your body can't convert vitamin D into its active form. That means even the calcium you do absorb can't be directed into bone. So sugar doesn't just steal calcium, it also sabotages the system that would put it back. Back in the 1970s, endocrinologists noticed that diabetic patients had disproportionately high fracture rates, regardless of how much calcium they consumed. They called it sweet bone syndrome and prescribed strict sugar restriction long before bisphosphonate drugs ever existed. Those old doctors were onto something. The swap is straightforward. Choose unsweetened dried fruits, or better yet, fresh berries. They give you natural sweetness without the calcium leaching effect. Now, here's where the pattern breaks. The next fruit isn't sweet at all, but it's one of the worst offenders. Food number 3, rhubarb. Rhubarb stalks get cooked into pies and compotes all the time, praised for fiber, but they're absolutely loaded with oxalic acid. The oxalate concentration in rhubarb is so high that it doesn't just bind the calcium from the rhubarb itself, it also grabs calcium from other foods you ate around the same time. A single cup of cooked rhubarb can contain over 500 milligrams of oxalates. That far exceeds the threshold that starts interfering with calcium absorption, and it's why functional medicine practitioners flag it immediately for anyone with kidney stones or osteoporosis. Some advise avoiding it entirely after 60. Rural physicians in British rhubarb-growing country noticed a pattern they called rhubarb hip. They kept seeing femoral fractures in otherwise healthy women over 65 who ate stewed rhubarb weekly. They connected the dots decades before the oxalate calcium binding mechanism was formally published. They didn't need a lab study to see what was happening in their patients. The body actually has a built-in defense against oxalates, a bacterium called Oxalobacter formigenes that lives in the gut and degrades oxalates before they cause trouble. But that bacterium gets wiped out by common antibiotics. The old doctors who were stingy with antibiotics, who only prescribed them when absolutely necessary, they were unknowingly protecting their patients' natural oxalate defense system. Today, with antibiotic overuse so common, that protection is often gone. If you love the tartness of rhubarb, try stewed green apples with cinnamon instead. You get a similar texture and that same tart kick without the oxalate load. That one hurts, but this last one does even more damage, especially if your kidneys are already struggling. Food number 4, star fruit. Star fruit looks exotic. It's low-calorie, full of vitamin C, but it's a double threat. Oxalates plus a neurotoxin. The oxalates block calcium absorption, same as the others, but star fruit also contains caramboxin. Healthy kidneys filter caramboxin out without a problem, but in seniors with reduced kidney function, that toxin can build up and cause confusion, seizures, even death. Case reports document acute kidney injury and neurotoxicity after eating just one star fruit in people who had undiagnosed chronic kidney disease. They had no idea their kidneys were struggling until that single fruit sent them to the emergency room. Nephrologists in Southeast Asia, where star fruit is native, have known about its toxicity for generations. They called it the fruit that makes old bones brittle and young kidneys old. Western medicine only formally recognized caramboxin neurotoxicity in the early 2000s, but traditional practitioners had been warning patients for decades based purely on clinical outcomes. They saw the pattern and they spoke up. What makes star fruit uniquely dangerous is that the oxalates don't just bind calcium. In compromised kidneys, they form sharp crystals that physically damage the kidney tubules. Damaged tubules can't activate vitamin D, which means calcium regulation falls apart and the downward spiral accelerates. One fruit can start a cascade that takes months to reverse. For a similar vitamin C boost without the risk, slice a kiwi fruit. It's low oxalate and supports collagen for bone matrix. And here's what most doctors stopped talking about in the 1980s. When pharmaceutical companies shifted the conversation toward calcium supplements and drugs. Bone repair runs on a trio: magnesium to activate vitamin D, vitamin K2 to direct calcium into bone instead of arteries, and collagen as the scaffold that holds it all together. Old school physicians used to prescribe bone broth, organ meats, and fermented foods precisely because they supported all three. Then the supplement industry took over and broke it into isolated pills that don't work as well without each other. The real mechanism isn't a single nutrient, it's the system. Reduce the oxalate and sugar load, keep the gut healthy so you absorb what you eat, and feed the collagen matrix. That's the forgotten protocol. So, you've seen the four, now let's put it all together. These four fruits aren't poison, but they can quietly sabotage your calcium balance when you need it most. The old doctors knew it, they just didn't have YouTube to tell you. Bone isn't static, it remodels every 7 to 10 years. Every day you reduce the oxalate and sugar load, you give your osteoblasts, the bone builders, a chance to outpace your osteoclasts, the bone breakers. The window for repair doesn't close after 60, it just needs the right conditions. Swap them out for seedless tomatoes, fresh berries, stewed apples, and kiwi, and you'll protect your bones without missing out. Now tell me, which one surprised you most? Let me know in the comments and hit subscribe for more bone-saving tips. I'll see you next time.